Are you cheered? Do you think the government has finally got a grip of this crisis on the Channel? Because we've now heard of the detention of some migrants, although we don't know how many.
No, I'm not convinced this scheme will work. In fact, I have no idea why it's being introduced. We know that there are schemes in Europe, in Denmark in particular, a social democratic country. In many ways, its political system is similar to the UK's. They have actually, as close as you can get, solved the migration problem by a number of measures. I don't know why we're not adapting that and copying that. But I don't think this scheme will work. In your intro, you talked about decisions made by the government. In actual fact, we've transferred the decision-making to France. They will decide whether or not they take these migrants back. There are lots of loopholes. If you claim to be under 18, and there is no certain way at the moment of telling people's age you can't be deported if you've got an outstanding claim for human rights. And there are a whole series of other holes in the scheme. So sadly, I don't think it's going to work.
The French certainly don't seem to have much intention of helping us too much in this area. And yesterday, the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, was on a boat in the Channel watching migrant boats come over. And he witnessed, he claims, French authorities taking life jackets off the migrants once they crossed into British waters in order to give them again to other migrants setting off set sail from France. They don't seem to have any interest in solving this problem. Yet Macron seems to have convinced Keir Starmer, the Labour Prime Minister, that this is a mutual agreement. Do you think we've been duped by the French?
Yes, and we're paying a lot of money to the French for trying to patrol their borders and stopping people getting in boats. So I think we have been duped. The people crossing the Channel will only stop if they believe there is no point in coming. If they believe they're going to be detained and deported to wherever, not necessarily France, then they will stop coming. That's happened in Denmark, which has solved the problem, and in Greece. People are detained until there is somewhere for them to go. But we're doing the exact opposite. People who come over are getting preferential treatment compared to my constituents. As I'm sure you did, Miriam, when you were an MP, you get letters and emails from people saying, where can I find a dentist? Very difficult. Where can I find council housing or social housing? Very difficult. I can't get a GP appointment. These people coming across illegally, having paid international smugglers, international criminals, basically a lot of money, are being given preferential treatment in all those areas. Health, dentistry and housing. And my constituents are very angry about that indeed.
Are you cheered? We just talked to Labour MP Graham Stringer and said, so you're thrilled to bits, are you? You've detained a few migrants. He said, no, I'm not thrilled to bits. The scheme won't work. Nope. And he also said, close the migrant hotels now.
I mean, he's quite right. The thing is, this scheme is just, it's never going to work. We knew weeks ago it was never going to work. Now we've kind of had the proof it's not going to work. It's going to be, 35,000 in, 2,000 out, maybe. But, what we talked about here a couple of weeks ago was that, the 50 in, 50 out. We know that the 50 from here are going to make human rights claims and they're going to be held up here. They're not going to have to go. We knew that 2 weeks ago, and now it's been confirmed it's happened. Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, did say yesterday that some of those claims would be heard in France. We now know that's not going to be the case. And the bottom line is, Farage has warned recently, his phrase was there's going to be societal collapse with the amount of people coming in. And that's what's going to happen. The chances of us getting the deterrent element, there's no deterrent element here. There was a figure today, it said, I think it was Dan Hodges said it, it's 16 to 1 against it working. And that's a 6% chance that you'll be one of the people fingered
So that's not a
Look,
deterrent.
I think
that's not a
let me finish
deterrent.
the sentence. So if you're determined to come here, a 6% chance of you being a finger to stay is actually...
Well, I don't know where he gets
that.
that figure from, but one thing I would agree with you on is that this is a gimmick that's not going to change any facts on the ground, and it's sort of tinkering around the edges. If you think this is a crisis, then it's not going to solve anything, and if you don't think this is a crisis, then it's just a distraction from the actual issues.
Do you not think this is a crisis?
As I've told you many, many times, Carole, I think it's an issue, it's a problem. There are ways to fix it, which the government is not entertaining, safe legal routes, etc. And so, but 25,000 people arriving on boats, it's a problem, it's an issue, it has to be dealt with. It is not societal collapse. Nigel Farage is playing this up for his own political interest.
Hang on, because he's got a point. And Graham Stringer's talking about closing these hotels now. There's that extraordinary story today about how these migrant hotels are hotbeds of criminality.
We know.
Hang on. I've used that expression, and let me explain why.
We do know that out of control immigration is fueling crime, and now we have the proof of that because 50 hotels, just 50 of the 250 we have migrants in, were looked at, and from those 50 hotels, 425 offences, criminal offences, have been committed. Of those, 109 were violent offences, 44 were sexual offences, 4 alleged counts of rape. So these people are coming to our country and they're being put up in 4-star hotels. They're getting
taxpayer expense.
At taxpayer, they're getting every luxury you can possibly imagine, things that they would never get in their own country, and yet they still come here and they're hurting people, they're robbing, and they're...
Well, a couple of them, we cannot expect asylum seekers are human beings. Human beings do bad things sometimes.
Oh,
you can't expect people...
Really, when a country's
not
giving
everyone,
you a new life...
Carole, not everyone who comes over here is going to be a saint.
You can't be allowed to say it's okay to rape.
Of course, how dare you say that? I did not say that. I would never say how it's okay to rape.
All women have been raped.
What I'm saying is that some people who come here, of course, will commit crimes and they should be dealt with in the normal way. It doesn't mean we have to throw the baby out of the bathwater by closing down the asylum system.
That some of the countries from which these people come do have much higher prevalence of sexual assault. That is known. We have the official statistics. Can we just go back to what you said about this is not an issue big enough for societal collapse? Now, in terms of the numbers coming in, obviously they're tiny compared to the number of legal migration. That's absolutely true. But the political and the kind of psychological impact of this is that people now think that their own government is against them, that their institutions are against them. When they hear that asylum seekers are getting free healthcare, free dentistry, when they hear about the cover-ups of people's immigration status when crimes are committed, people start to think that the government is against them. And that's a dangerous moment politically.
Well, I certainly agree that there are a lot of people who are very, very sort of disturbed and angry about this issue and they want it to be resolved. I'm not saying it's not an issue. I'm saying that there are so many issues in this country, and this is 25,000 people. It's even if you talk about immigration, it's a tiny fraction of the total number of migrants.
You say 25,000 people.
Well, that's so far.
There are protests in towns and cities all over this country precisely because of this problem. So it is a societal problem. Parents are terrified about their children. People generally are worried about women and children on our streets and the violence these people are bringing. So it is a societal problem.
But Carole,